expand our imagination.
Justification for being what
And welcome to Washington Unplugged. I'm Bill Plant, and Arizona is in the national spotlight after passing a controversial immigration reform law which orders police to make what the law calls a reasonable attempt to check on the status of people about whom, according to the law, there may be a reasonable suspicion that they could be in the country illegally. Governor Jan Brewer says the new law will protect Americans from crime related to illegal immigration. But Mexican Americans and civil rights groups say the law is racist. Here with me to discuss the political impact of this new law, Michael Gerson, op-ed columnist for the Washington Post and a senior fellow at the Council on Foreign Relations, and CBSNews.com's Stephanie Condon. Welcome, and Stephanie, let's begin with you. The politics of this have gotten a lot of play in the last couple of days. What does it mean to Republicans particularly?
Well, what really puts Republicans in a hard spot, they have to prove to their conservative base that they are tough on immigration. At the same time, they risk alienating Hispanic voters who clearly feel offended by this law. And it's going to be a tough road to travel, especially during a midterm election year.
Well, Michael, as you point out in your column today in the Washington Post, it didn't work so well in California when it was tried there and drove the Republicans basically out of power in the state.
Yeah. No, I think there are a lot of similarities to Proposition 187, which denied benefits to illegal immigrants in California. The law was very, very popular at the time, passed with almost 60% of the vote. Pete Wilson gained a lot of political momentum because of it, but it was eventually overturned as unconstitutional. And it became toxic over time, alienated a lot of Latino voters, and drove the Republican Party in California into the wilderness. So the short-term gain did not result in a long-term benefit. I'm afraid that the situation in Arizona is going to be very, very similar.
Well, Stephanie, let's talk a little bit. The White House has not pushed immigration reform, but now Senator Harry Reid, who's running for re-election in Nevada, has brought it up as a major issue in his campaign for re-election because he's in trouble, and a lot of people think this is kind of a cynical move. What do you think?
Well, you have to be cynical about every move in Congress. There definitely is some political motivation there. As you said, he's trailing behind the Republican candidates right now. And this would appeal to the large Latino base in Nevada. And that's part of the Democrat strategy for the midterm elections. Actually, half of first-time voters in 2008 who came out to support President Obama were either young or Hispanic or Black. So that's an important part of the Democratic base that they need to bring back. They need to rally those voters if they want to keep their losses to a minimum this year.
Well, but talk about cynical. Everybody in Washington believes, as a matter of revealed fact, that the immigration law will not come up in Congress before the election.
That's probably true. Harry Reid has acknowledged that the climate bill has a much better chance of moving forward this year. They've already written that bill, whereas there is no immigration legislation right now. The House is very hesitant to move on immigration, and they've already passed a climate bill, and that was a really hard vote for a lot of Democrats in the House to take, and they're not willing to take many hard votes like that if the Senate can't do the same. So it's all up to Reid.
So, Michael, that brings up the question that it may be politically cynical and that it also is morally questionable. You make the point that that you're at a moral crossroads, people are on with this law.
No, I think that's true. I mean, you have to admit that the provocation in Arizona is real. I mean, there's chaos on parts of the border. But the reaction, which is really to target a group of people based at least in part on ethnicity, and then have them be in a situation where they have to prove their innocence to authority, is, I think, properly taken by the broader Hispanic community in the United States as a kind of profiling. Now, the law is so vague, it's one reason it may be unconstitutional, that you can argue it does this or it does that. But the reality is that there's a significant possibility for abuse in this law, at the very least.
Well, when the governor was asked at her Friday news conference, after she signed this law, how officers would know that somebody was reasonably suspicious, she couldn't answer.
No, that's absolutely true. The standard in the law, no one, including the sponsors of the law and the governor who signed it, will actually say what that means. What does a reasonable suspicion mean? Because most likely it would seem like a stereotype and be a stereotype. And that's something that they don't want to do in public. They say the police are going to be trained, it'll be carefully applied, but they won't say what the standard is. And I think that's also another way that this has some legal exposure. I mean, the vagueness of the statute is very likely to invite legal challenge.
But you make a higher point this morning. You say that this puts people at a moral crossroads. Explain.
Yeah, I think I compare it to Proposition 187 the last time around. For many Republicans, it was really a choice, okay? Whether you take a politically expedient but divisive approach, like Pete Wilson, the governor of California, did, or you take the approach that people like George W. Bush took in Texas at the time, where he was courting Hispanics instead of alienating them, or people like Jack Kemp, who was a kind of voice of conscience for the Republican Party on these issues. And you find that those are the people that rose in stature over time, okay? Well, there was a fairly harsh historical and moral judgment on those who were engaged in a very divisive kind of politics. I think Arizona is going to be seen as that kind of moment.
So, wrapping it up, Stephanie, this becomes a political sort of tar baby to wrestle with, doesn't it?
It certainly does. It doesn't seem that the issue is going away as much as both parties probably wanted to. In fact, a handful of lawmakers in other states are saying they want to adopt laws similar to the Arizona law. We have a story up on the hot sheet at cbsnews.com right now looking at the other states that want to adopt those laws. So Republicans are really going to have to speak up on this, and the Congress will have to address it somehow sooner or later.
But probably later. Stephanie Condon of CBS.com, thanks very much. And to you, Michael Gerson, always a pleasure.
Great, thank you.
And we turn now from the debate over immigration to the world of golf. Many people who don't play golf see it as a rich man's sport. And that's the image that our next guests want to change. They're in Washington to talk to the folks on Capitol Hill, and they hope to change those perceptions. Joining me are Mark Woodward, who is the CEO of the Golf Course Superintendents Association, and Rafael Barajas, who is the superintendent of the Hacienda Golf Course in Diamond Bar, California. Gentlemen, when I was a kid, I caddied for a bunch of fat old guys who I thought were impossibly rich, and it didn't, golf looked like a lot of fun, but not the way they played it.
Well, it's interesting, that perception of it being an elitist sport or whatever. It's really not true, because we have about 16,000 golf courses in the United States, which are really true small businesses that are run, and we employ about 2 million people in the business. And what's interesting, of those 16,000, 10,000 are public access golf courses.
So only 10,000 of 16 are public?
Public access golf courses.
Never would have thought it.
About 70% of the rounds played on a PGA type facility are public access rounds, and the average cost of those rounds is for 18 holes is $28 nationally in 2007, and for less than 18 holes is close to $14. So not a rich man's sport by any means.
Well, you guys are here to talk to Congress, right? Because
yes,
golf was excluded from the Recovery Act and from the disaster assistance under the Emergency Economic Stabilization Act. You want to turn that around?
Yes, that's what we're trying to do. We're trying to turn that message around a little bit and tell the story of golf in a different manner, and really put a new face on golf. This truly isn't about tournament golf or what you see on TV. This is about the people that work day in and day out making their living at golf. And we were excluded from the Katrina tax relief funding that was given a few years ago, and we wanted to change that. And that's what really started the impetus of this We Are Golf campaign. And that's the message that we're trying to get out, that we are small businesses employing a lot of people in the United States that are making their living, paying mortgages, putting their kids through college and those types of things. And we deserve that recognition as well. And we don't want any special treatment from Congress. We want to have a level playing field with other small businesses. So
you're talking about employment that golf creates. Mr. Barajas, I guess your story illustrates that pretty well. Tell us.
Well, a golf course will employ an average of approximately 40 to 50 individuals on an average nationwide. But not only that, it goes beyond, golf goes beyond that, because the impact that it has, it goes to other businesses such as golf equipment manufacturers, food and beverage operations. It's deeper than just the employees that are employed at the golf course. In my case, what golf has done for me is given me a career, and it also allowed me the opportunity to send my 4 kids to college that otherwise I would have never been able to do. I would have never been able to done that.
So I understand you came to this country as a child, right?
That is correct. That is correct. I came to this country back in 1978. I was 14 years old. I knew I wasn't going to work indoors. I grew up outdoors, and so it was natural for me to look at an open space, and golf was just a beautiful piece of land that provides a lot of provides opportunities for a lot of people. I mean, it provides an employment opportunities for many people.
So you guys are also talking about golf as an environmental help to sustain the environment.
Yeah, there's really kind of 3 legs to the stool that we're talking about: the economic, the environmental, and the human aspects of golf. But one of the big legs of that stool is the environmental component. And the Environmental Institute for Golf, which is our organization's philanthropic arm, is leading the charge from an industry-wide standpoint to develop a sustainability platform that's working towards continuous improvement, showing that the golf industry is conscious of what we do and how we do it, and from an environmental stewardship standpoint.
So do you see it as a way to sustain open land? I mean, that golf course that I caddied on as a kid is now apartment buildings.
In some cases, that's what happens. But golf course is really a sanctuary for wildlife. It provides a green space for the environment. I mean, there's a lot of wildlife in our situation. You got a lot of wild animals that roam around the golf course. There is really a sanctuary for wildlife and the environment. I mean, we really are stewards of the environment. So
okay, as we widen this up, let me just put it to you both.
Okay.
A lot of people might look at this and say, okay, just another industry here to get a piece of the action in Washington.
Well, all we want is a level playing field, because we have been excluded from some of the issues related to policy making and legislation.
And do you think that's because of your image as an elitist sport?
I think it's because we haven't done a very good job of telling our story, and now we've come together and we're reducing redundancy. We're coming together as a one voice, as an industry for the first time, and all of the allied associations are here today for National Golf Day, and a part of that is the unveiling of the We Are Golf campaign that we're working on right now. And so we think it's part of us telling our story. And we talked to the Republican leadership this morning, and they agreed to listen to us and say we need to understand what you all do as an industry better, but you also need to understand what we do. So we're here to offer ourselves as a resource, as an industry to them, kind of a soft ask on this trip, to offer ourselves as a resource and to collaborate with them and to try to be included at the table when they have dialogue about legislation, because we think we have a lot to add to that dialogue when it takes place.
So you going to invite anybody out for a round?
You're welcome. If you're in California, you're welcome to come over and play my facility.
We'd love to have you out. That'd be
We'd
great.
love to have you out.
Rafael Barajas, Mark Woodward, thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Appreciate the time.
That's it for Washington Unplugged today. Join us again tomorrow on CBSNews.com. I'm Bill Plant. Have a great day.
Expand our imagination.
Justification for being what you are.